And welcome to yet another edition of Talking with Forest Park, your key to the city of Forest Park. I'm very fortunate to have with me City Manager Ray Hodges sitting with us, doing the fall edition here. Crisp and fall-esque today, isn't it?
Very crisp, very crisp. Not as much fall, but very crisp.
Definitely.
But it's good to be here with you once again, Jason.
Thank you for joining us once again. Of course, the leaves are falling on here, outside, which only means one thing, that we should be bringing back, right, Gwyn, Forest Park environmentalist.
Well, I guess that's one reason.
Well, there's always a reason to bring you back on, right? But obviously, if Joyce Kilmer could write another poem about trees, it would be, if I could write a song about the city of Forest Park, it would be all about trees. And that's why we're bringing you on today.
Well, we're trying to replenish our trees, and so far so good. Yeah.
Well, we started the reforesting Forest Park, and that one has been going on. How did you feel 2017 went as a growing initiative here for the
tree
tree
program?
program?
Yeah. Well, and Jason, before Wright answers that, I think it'd
Sure.
be good if he just gives our listening audience a real quick overview of what we were doing and then get into how well we've done in the reforesting program.
Good point.
Well, what we were trying to do is reforest our urban forest in the city, because we've been hit with the emerald ash borer. You can ride up and down and see the results of that. We have other things that are coming down the interstate that are going to be hitting us, and so we have to start thinking long term about what are we going to do, how are we going to maintain or regrow our forest, because it's going to take a hit.
Sure.
And so we started this program about, 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
As I say, there's about 5 years for the emerald ash borer. That's when we really noticed the bigger change.
Right. And so the environmental program decided that we would try to help the residents do this, because they're going to have to maintain it, plant it, maintain it. So we felt obligated to help them pay for it. So we offer some subsidies. And so for the last 5 years, we've been able to distribute 419 trees. And there are different varieties. What we're trying to do is have a nice variety of trees throughout Forest Park. So if something comes in and attacks one type of tree, just like the ash tree, it won't devastate the canopy, the city's canopy.
And of course, that was one of our difficulties that we have experienced and continue to experience, that 50, 60 years ago, a lot of trees were planted, but very often they were the same types of trees.
Correct.
Maybe they were trees the builders got at a deep discount. A lot of them were trees that we don't really consider as desirable now as a street tree should be. A lot of different reasons. So Wright's program has helped a great deal with starting the process of diversifying the species of trees we have.
Right, and one of the things that I went to a couple workshops on this, and one of the things that I learned was you don't want to just plant 1,000 trees in one summer, because then when they all mature, they're going to all die probably at
Around the same time. Yeah.
So what we want to do is stage it a little bit each year over a long period of time. So we do about 100 trees each year, and if we do this program for 10 years, we'll have 1,000 trees out there, and they'll all have their own different time frames and maturity times, and so it will work out well. We're hoping that this will go on longer than 10 years.
Sure.
So we'll have to see, and we'll bring in new trees. Next year, we've decided on what trees we want to do.
Are you able to unveil?
I can, and
okay,
I'm excited.
it's a grand unveiling here.
I'm excited. We're going to stick with the black gum, because the black gum is just gorgeous in the fall. The red leaves just are blazing.
And
it's
we
the
do love
waxy leaves, so they kind of glow and shine. And so we're doing the black gum again, but for the other canopy tree, large tree, we're going to do the American yellowwood.
Okay.
And so
This is
instead of the
definitely
bright
new.
red colors that we have been distributing for the last couple of years, we're going to be more of a golden, more of a yellow,
Okay.
kind of blazing fall color. And so that's kind of exciting to start mixing that in there. And then for the smaller understory trees, we're going to stick with the dogwood, but last year we had the white flowering dogwood. We're going to have the pink.
Ooh, so those will look a lot. The diversity on that will be
Right,
great.
we're doing that, and then we're doing the sourwood. And the sourwood is a middle range tree, maybe 20 feet or something, but they have a bloom, a blossom that's very much like the lily of the valley.
Ooh.
And they last for a pretty long period of time. And then they have a nice color in the fall. And people, we're going to have to give them special planting instructions a little bit because of the soil. And so we'll give them some added tips on how to, plant it. But they say this is a gorgeous tree. So,
do you think that's a little bit of a concern with giving a little bit of a tree that may need a little more attention? You're not too worried, are you?
I'm not worried about it. If you can set the stage correctly,
Mm-hmm.
if you know how to plant it and what kind of soils, and the hole is properly done, and you water it, I think we'll be golden.
Well,
so to speak.
I like the
Right.
way. Now, as you were saying, 100 trees, to a lot of people, that's a lot of trees to plant. I mean, we're talking 1,000 trees, that's even more, but 100 trees is a pretty hefty amount to do in 1 year, don't you think?
It is, but when you distribute it along to 55 households,
Right.
each household can get 2 trees maximum.
Mm-hmm.
Your cameraman
Yes.
got 2 black gum, and
got 2
Waycross
as well.
got 2 dogwoods, and so that's 4 right there.
Exactly.
And by the way, your dogwoods are planted perfectly.
Thank you.
And they're going to look great right on the road.
I think that it's a perfect space for it. Nice for the shading, for the building,
Right.
great for the easement. I think it's a good idea.
So if everybody takes part, and Public Works helps me a great deal with this program, and we distribute them all in one morning, and then each household puts in 1 or 2 trees, and then there we go. We got 100 new trees in a day. And then we'll do that again next year, and then a year after that, and a year after that.
And hopefully, as we continue to grow, our forest will continue, and it will still be lush and beautiful here in the city.
I think long term, I would like to come back in about 20, if I'm still around, 20, 25 years. Hopefully I might be retired. If not,
Wow.
my eyes might not be very good. But
Right, your future plans seem so bleak there. Please, you have to be positive on that.
Well, he's positive. He just has an ulterior motive.
This is
Plant
true.
these trees now so he can come
back and
inspect
enjoy
them
them later.
25,
That's right.
30 years from now.
I think it's going to be beautiful.
It will be beautiful, and it will help us continue to keep the forest in Forest Park, because the reality is we have lost some trees out of the natural life cycle.
Sure.
We have had to remove some trees, perhaps for damage and such. And it's just important that we realize that we have to have a program to systematically replace the trees. Not just remove the trees, but you got to replace the trees in order to maintain the concept of Forest Park.
Agreed. And, if you really think about it, we've been hit by 2 pretty devastating items in the last, we'll say 10 years. We had Ike run through, which
Right.
destroyed a number of trees naturally, the ash borer naturally. And you're already saying that there are possibilities of what may be coming in the future. So
Right.
if we can prepare and sustain now, the forest will continue.
Right.
And I think that's
And one added note, because you mentioned those 2 situations that removed a lot of trees, but we've also had smaller calamities, if you will, where maybe a certain species of trees have been hit by a certain disease. We lost a number of pine trees over the last few years, as an example. So there are a number of things that occur in addition to what we've just talked about that has removed trees. And again, we just have to stay focused. So thankfully, Wright's program will help us
Sure.
to stay focused with the ideal of replacing some of the trees.
excellent. And again, we'll be looking to see next year the planting, and we'll definitely have to talk about how it went next year around that
Looking
time.
forward to it.
Now, of course, we've talked about reforesting in the area of homes and obviously businesses as well, but other trees that are coming in as we continue our tree talk here. We're going to look in the Carolyn Business Park as well.
Right.
And now that's an area that I won't say hasn't been touched, because if you notice, there's a big building that's missing in that area. But there's some foresting that could go on as well, and your program is going to be helping as well on this.
Well, it's a joint program. We have Public Works working
Again.
on it, and then our program's working on it. And we recently were approved for a Duke Energy grant, and so we're all putting in funding. And what we're going to try to do next fall is remove the street trees that are along Carillon Boulevard,
Okay.
and then we're going to replant with a hardier type of species of trees. We're going to have a more variety of trees, and we're trying to make that whole corridor look really nice. And then once we have that completed, the long-term plan is then we'll approach the companies, the businesses that are along the boulevard, and say, hey, we've got this nice, would you like to have, we might be able to work out some kind of a tree program for your company. What kind of tree would you like? We'll help subsidize the tree. We can get it in, and hopefully we can start replanting along the property of the buildings. But the first phase is getting the street trees viable again. Right
Okay.
now, they're looking pretty rough.
As I say, they are a little rough. It's one of those areas that looked like it needed a little more love. Was there a reason for a delay on that, or was it just timing that is bringing this forward now?
There are a lot of projects going on, and
Sure.
so you have to, and you only have so many people within the city. And so I've been in close contact with Dave Bisking. He's the Director of Public Works. He wanted to talk to the people, Emeritus, to see, because they still own the properties and they want to help. And so he was trying to arrange things happening with their company. And so with the Duke Power grant, and we wrote that we were going to do things in the fall, then all of a sudden we've got a date. And so we'll work towards the date in the fall to replant. So all of the Emeritus, Dave, I, and whoever else is involved with it, we'll start thinking about what are the steps to get to the fall so we can plant everything that we want to plant, because that's the ideal time to plant.
And was this like an idea when Carillon Business Park came in to give it that canopy going down this corridor, or is this something that was really spearheaded by Wright?
Well, it was actually part of the original design concept for Carillon. There was a landscape plan that they had to submit. The problem is, because of the cost savings I think the builders were trying to work with, and some other reasons, it just didn't materialize with the quality of trees and the variety of trees that we would like to see. So fortunately, with Wright stepping into the picture and focusing on this, we just now have a better opportunity to fulfill a concept that we had at the beginning, but for various reasons that concept just couldn't quite materialize to the extent that we think it will now.
Well, and it's the idea that it never went away. You always wanted to come back to it, and now seems to be the perfect time. So it was never something that was thrown to the side and never returned to. It was always in the back of the mind, which is great.
Well, you summarize it well, because it was definitely something that never went away. There was always a landscape plan. The issue is how it was executed and what limited resources limited it. For example, that's why fortunately we now have a grant involved that will help us. And we're able to coordinate different areas, the environmental area and the public works area. We're able to coordinate them, so we're getting more bang for our buck. We're getting much more mileage than what we otherwise could. We have a small pot of money to work with. We are expanding it to a great extent by coordinating our resources.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think looking at the, $5,000, and then from you, $5,000 from Public Works, and then $5,000 from Duke, there's $15,000 right there to be able to make something happen.
Right.
It's a wonderful thing to start seeing.
Right. And there's one other factor here, because the money is important, but what we're taking advantage of also is time.
Good point.
The trees that we're planting are economical, but as time goes on, they'll be much more valuable. So we have to start now to get this kind of program underway and take advantage of time.
Trees, types of trees. Are you still looking in the same vein that we are in our canopy here, or how are you taking advantage of this?
We are very fortunate to have a great state forester, Wendy. You know Wendy Van
Yeah, I
Buren.
do.
And she went out with me to look at the trees, and and we kind of talked about the types and the varieties that we want. So we're still kind of in discussion.
Okay.
We were thinking of 3 or 4 different varieties and then mixing them up down the boulevard.
Sure.
So there's still a lot of ideas that we want to put, but we would like to have it like 3 or 4, maybe 5 at the most. We don't want to get too
You don't want
many.
to. Oh, I was gonna say. You probably don't
But
wanna
so
overcrowd.
we'll pick accordingly so that they're the proper street tree, the proper height, and the characteristics of a street tree. But also will lend a kind of a beautiful ambiance to the whole area.
Well, it'll actually make it a boulevard, a true boulevard.
It'll make it a boulevard, and I can see that whole complex as like a Garden of Eden if we play it right.
That would be great. And as long as we can come back next year and talk about how it happened, how everything happened, and where we are a year later, will be great to talk about as well.
Should be good, yeah.
And of course, you mentioned removal of those trees, but we're also talking about removal of other trees residentially as well. We kind of touched on it a little bit because of the emerald ash borer and the like, but there are some dead and dying trees throughout the city as well, and you're
Right.
trying to help out with this.
Well, I've talked with Ray about this, and Ray's provided a lot of ideas, and the key is some of these trees are pretty big, and they're expensive. And I remember going down Smiley Avenue, and with one of the public works guys, and he was showing me. I didn't know what an ash tree was, and he was showing me. He said, "See this tree, this tree, this tree." I said, "Yeah, they're all ash trees." And then he showed me one house that had 5 trees in it, and they were dying or dead, and they were all ash trees. Some of them big ash trees, some
Been
not
there
so
since
big.
the house was probably built.
Right. And it's always been in the back of my mind that something needs to be done. And we've talked to other communities, they agree something
Okay.
needs to be done. So we're presently researching different possibilities of ways that we can assist the resident in safely removing these trees. So we're still in the middle of researching the program. We're talking to some certified arborists to see what their ideas are. And hopefully we can put together some kind of a plan towards the first of the year
Okay.
and maybe begin a pilot program to see how it works.
Looking around spring then, maybe summer?
So somewhere, I don't want to put a date on it because
Sure.
I'm not sure how quickly or how smoothly we can get the information and the people in place.
Okay.
But I think definitely 2018, we should have some attempt at trying to help the residents remove the trees that they would like to remove. We can't pay for everything,
Right.
but maybe we can help.
But there are a number of programs that you've done that has helped the resident in, and we'll be discussing that here shortly in regards to a little bit of money from them, a little bit of money from you, and both of you have a win-win.
Yes.
And there's a possibility of that.
That's a possibility of that.
So-
Hopefully a strong possibility.
Yeah.
So-
Well, certainly, it's in the concept/planning stage now. We wouldn't even be talking about it if we didn't think
Right.
it was realistic
Right.
to actually develop. And it's certainly within the foreseeable future that we could do it. 2018, there's no reason we can't do it. It's just a matter of how do we structure the proper partnership
Sure.
with the resident. And if we can structure that, leverage the resources we have, we can get this done. We know that you got to maintain the trees that you have. You have to remove some of the trees that are dead and dying, and you have to have a replacement program. We need this whole concept to really maintain the forest and Forest Park, and this is a part of it, one, and it's a part that I said, oh, we're going to get this done, two. So I'm going to be leaving it in the hands of
You're gonna-
the
you're gonna say
administrators to get
very
it done.
good.
But
I have his phone number.
but my final words will be, get it done. Get it done.
And removal of trees, as we were saying, is not, it's very expensive and it's not easy to do. I mean, we're also looking at the part of stump removal, the root system. It goes.
That's all in the
it's on-
negotiation of what the arborists think that they can do and economic feasibility of all these things. So I think the important thing is to get it down.
Sure.
So that it doesn't fall down on something or somebody. And then as far as the cosmetics go, we'll see what the price is to make that.
Safety first. That's the important
Right.
part. Well, finally, leaving one of the last things for trees in today's discussion. leaf raking and gutter cleaning, which is something we have not seen something to this type of program.
It's been expanded a bit. PWC, People Working Cooperatively,
Yes.
they do this every fall. And we're very fortunate to have a partnership with them in low-income housing retrofits. And so their arm for the LEAF program, we're in contact, and they have about 50 homes of residents who need help with the leaves in their gutters. And so they have volunteers to come. They are organizing them now. I think it's all over Hamilton County, to tell you the truth. And it's Saturday, November the 11th. And so they will have an army of people in different communities raking and bagging leaves, cleaning out gutters. And so what we decided to do to help them is we're going to rent a dumpster, a 40 cubic yard dumpster from Rumpke, put it in the city parking lot.
Okay.
So we want to compost these leaves. We do not want to throw them in the landfill. So we're going to drive trucks around, and when they put them in bags, we're going to put the bags in the truck, haul it to the city, and put it into the dumpster, so that then after the weekend's over, Rumpke will come on a Monday afternoon and take it, and then they'll compost it. This is primarily for people working cooperatively, so we don't have to drive all the way to Rumpke back and forth. But we decided to open it up to the residents, because some residents still like to bag their leaves. So if they want to bag it that weekend, they're more than welcome to bring it to the city parking lot and put them in the dumpster. But there are conditions that the leaves need to be loose or in paper bags, no plastic.
I was just going to say, if you're planning on recycling or composting these, it has to be in a proper bag.
Right, and we want people to use it if they, that'd be great, but it just needs to be in paper or loose.
And you're saying this is an expansion of what's gone on before.
Right.
Obviously, this is a program that has worked well for you and the city.
I think it's worked well for the residents who really need it, because there's no cost to it. It's all done by volunteers. People working cooperatively are great. They get a list up, and they go and they set up teams of people to hit so many houses, and then they put the first year they did it, threw me off, because all of a sudden I saw like 20, 25 bags, and we have a limit to what
You
can
could
be
put
collected
in.
during the week, and I was freaking out. I didn't know what was going on. And then we finally have toned it back, and we've worked it out, the details. And so I think it's going to work like a charm.
Good. And now, for those who want to be involved or get involved, should they call and speak to you, or just be prepared on the 11th?
I think they need to call me, and then I can put them into contact with the person in charge with people working cooperatively.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like we've got some great things going along. Kind of trying to wrap up some wonderful things. I know we've got so many things to talk about. I hate to leave it behind. I'm full of puns today, sorry.
You are.
We talked last time when you were on about the attic insulation and air sealing, since it is the crisper months now.
Right.
We're now starting to see this. The last we spoke, we were just getting involved. It looks like 11 homes have been complete since July.
Right. The program started in July. We've had 11 completed homes where they've gone in and air sealed the attic and insulated the attic to the new 2018 codes, R48. So that should really put a nice cushion in the attic and help the house be more comfortable. The average cost per house out of those 11, and I'm not saying that this is what's going to be for the 12th.
Correct.
But for the 11th, there was $1,700 for the insulation and air sealing. But the cost for the resident was only $610, because our program offers a subsidy, and Duke Energy has a $250 rebate card that comes 30 days after the project. So there's a lot of financial assistance to help them get that done, because then they win again, win.
Right.
Because their bills will be lower, the house will be more comfortable, and it's the thing to do.
With the number of home improvement items that your program has brought to the resident, it's amazing what type of savings you're allowing for them to meet, to bring up to a 2018 code, to do all these wonderful things. Are you still accepting homes to get here? Because considering that the crisper months are here.
You mean for the
attic?
Oh,
yes.
It's year round.
Okay.
It's year round.
For those who those who missed out on the last conversation we had.
Right. That's
So
when we started it.
Obviously, call 595 Land.
Right.
Talk to Wright.
Right.
get yourself on a list.
Right. Or I'll just give them the numbers of the contractors to call, and then they work directly with the contractors. We have 4 contractors who are in the partnership.
And we'll come back again the next time we talk. We'll probably see better savings, especially through the winter months.
Oh, I wish they would go to Oxford, where I live. But unfortunately, that's outside of our jurisdiction.
That's a little bit out of the area.
Right.
Well, in our final segment here, discussing things with Wright Gwyn, Forest Park environmentalist himself, and Ray Hodges, of course, our city manager. You had a very interesting little competition going on, and it was our first annual. And when I hear annual, I like to hear that because I know that we're going to be doing this again next year.
Right.
This was an art competition, an
Right.
environmental art competition,
Right.
something you don't normally hear about. Why this concept? What made you decide that this is what we need to explore?
Well, we used to have, until about 8 years ago, we had an education specialist who would go directly into the schools.
Mm-hmm.
And then when 2008 hit and the financial turmoil that went on, we lost that position.
Sure.
And so we've always been trying to find ways that we can help. Since we don't have a person dedicated to the school system, what can I do to maybe create some interest, environmental interest within the schools and within the teachers and things like that. So the high school has some great resources. And so I've always liked art competitions. You don't know what you're going to get from year to year.
It's fair.
And so I talked with Carol Becky Young. She's the head of the art department over at the high school. And we talked, and she said, well, this sounds kind of good. We didn't know what guidelines we're going to do. Excuse me. And so she talked to the other 2 art teachers, and they were in, and we worked up some guidelines for the students that they could use whatever medium they wanted to. They could work individually or in groups, but they did have to write a little essay.
I was going to say, there had to be a concept involved in
right.
that.
Why did they pick this environmental topic? How did you do it? What feelings did you want to generate from it?
Sure.
All this kind of stuff. And so the students went to work, and we got the pieces together, and we had a viewing from judges, which the mayor, Chuck Johnson, was one of the judges, and then we had some board members, my board members, and we looked around, we picked 3 winners. And so we blew them up, large tapestry type of artwork, and Ray had let us use the panels in the lobby of the city building. Thought that would be a nice place to show them off, so we had a council presentation, which is showing now, I believe, at Waycross Community Media, and they showed and talked about how they were developed and why they were developed, and one of the kids, the winning student, even read her narrative and knocked me down. I mean, she was excellent, and I'd listen to it every once in a while because it makes me feel good that somebody thought that much about what she did and how she put her piece together, that I'm still recovering from it.
It shows that there's still an environmental impact in our culture and in our world, where we're sometimes told that that's not necessarily what we need to worry about, and it still shows that there is a need and a desire.
Right, and so the artwork will be up in the lobby until after the New Year's, and then we'll transfer it over to the schools to promote the second annual show. And the teachers are already getting back to me saying, I've got all these ideas. Can we do this? Can we do this? And so I just wrote them yesterday saying, let's just have a meeting. We'll figure out what we want to do, and we'll.
So we're looking to maybe change a few things up a little.
I would like to turn. I was looking at the lobby the other day, and I said, "Can we make this into a museum?"
You've got plenty of art space by the shredder.
By the shredder.
Well, we don't want the art in the shredding.
Not in
no,
the shredding, but they were talking about sculptures. They were talking about blown glass. They were talking about painting and photography.
Art made out of recycled
So
materials.
that would be that they were talking about that too. So we're not sure where we're going next time. But it's very exciting.
So are you looking around the same time frame for an unveiling and a judging?
Right.
So looking at early fall next
Right.
year.
Right.
So high schoolers, be prepared. Get ready for another art exhibit and competition. brought to you by Wright Gwyn.
Right, but I want to thank one person for all these programs.
Sure.
I'd like to thank Ray Hodges
Oh,
because I'm always kind of hesitant to go in his office and express an idea or a concept because he always comes back with things I hadn't thought of. But he's been very supportive, and I know he's going to be retiring fairly soon.
Oh, it really is he?
Yeah, I think the whole city probably knows it by now. And I just wanted to say, I appreciate what you've done. Our interview, I still remember the interview that we had 28 years ago, and you were still willing to hire me, which is, I always wondered about that. But it's been a pleasure, and I've learned quite a bit over those years.
well, I can formally say thank you, Wright. It's been enjoyable, and we owe a lot to Wright for
Absolutely.
the success of Forest Park. So all I can say as we kind of start to part ways at the end of the year, just keep up the good work.
I can't say any more about that. You always look for the positive in life, and there it was right there.
Hey, it's been good. It's been good.
It has been good, and it's been good to hear about all of the wonderful things that are coming environmentally here in the city.
Right.
So, Wright, thank you for sitting with us.
Well, thank you.
Ray, hold tight. I got somebody else coming in. You always bring the greatest guests on, so we'll be right back here on Talking with Forest Park, the fall edition.
Join us for the Forest Park City Council meetings every first and third Monday on Time Warner Cable, Channel 23.
And welcome back. I'd like to thank you for joining us here on Talking with Forest Park. Ray Hodges is still joining us in his corner, but joining us now is Chris Anderson. Chris, glad you could join us.
Thank you, Jason.
Well, we have a little bit of a touchy situation or topic to talk about, one that we haven't brought to the table before, but it is time to discuss it, and medical marijuana has hit the state of Ohio, which is no surprise to anybody. But obviously, what does that mean and the implications that it means for the city of Forest Park? Well, Chris, we're bringing you on because obviously it does need to require some zoning information going on. So I guess we need to talk, first of all, what does it mean to the city of Forest Park with the state passing of the legalization of medical marijuana here in the state of Ohio?
Well, in a general framework, it means that communities need to address it, whether or not they're going to adopt the concept of medical marijuana usage and the business associated with it, or whether or not they're going to reject it. So Chris is our community development director. He oversees our zoning. He is the individual that's key to our planning, and he's examined this to a great extent, and I think he's fully prepared to help give residents an understanding of what this concept of medical marijuana means in Forest Park. So we're glad to have Chris with us to talk about that.
Yes. So what does it, obviously the city has decided that yes indeed, we will be one of the areas that says it's okay medically,
Right.
correct?
Well, first of all, the state decided that for patients and physicians. That can occur across the state. Someone that has a condition that qualifies, and they're specifically listed in the state law. Various cancers, pain relief, that sort of
I'd say
thing.
it's usually pain-associated cancers, glaucoma,
Right.
things of that nature.
And they have a physician that wants to prescribe a cannabis product for treatment. They can do that whether they're a resident of Forest Park, Cincinnati, Madeira, Columbus, wherever. What we're talking about are the locations of the facilities that are going to be part of this control program.
Okay.
And the state, rather than just saying, okay, hey, marijuana is being sold in Colorado and Washington and California. Anybody just, if you're selling it out there, you can come here. They didn't want to do that. So they adopted what they call a control program, which means that every stage is regulated and licensed by the state. So it starts with cultivation, which occurs in buildings indoors.
Okay.
It has to be cultivated here, processed here. There are labs for testing the products for psychoactive properties, for safety. And then the dispensaries, that's where someone with a prescription would go to obtain the product. All the attention's been on the dispensaries, but really there are these other three stages of production that are going to have significant facilities throughout the state.
Now, before we go further, I think it's important for Chris to maybe kind of describe a little further what we're talking about in terms of medical marijuana, because some people envision this as the legalization of somebody walking down the street smoking marijuana or so, and that's clearly not the case of what we're talking about here. So why don't you maybe give that distinction of what we're talking about?
Right, so number one, none of the marijuana products are to be in smokable form. Okay, so that means no leaves or buds or that sort of thing. Just being, you could just go purchase those and and put them in your favorite accessory. It's either something that's edible, patches, pills, and or products, liquid product that can go into a vaporizer.
Okay.
Yeah. And depending on the condition and the person's own preferences, they may choose one or the other, or the doctor may choose one or the other for them. But and then in terms of the usage, I mean, it's meant to be used in the way you would use a medicine, which is at home. It's not for recreational or public use. It's not for giving to your friends or holding a party. Really, I mean, and it's our, we certainly hope it stays this way, that we keep this medical focus. I mean, really, it's not going to change the way, people go about their day-to-day lives pretty much at all, unless you are a patient.
Right, because that's the only person who is being prescribed this treatment. Now, of course, the big question is, how does this affect the city? Obviously. And this is where we're coming in for the discussion. I mean, obviously, you've mentioned many different legs of this beast, so to speak.
Right.
The dispensaries are the bigger focus, but you also made mention there are three other pieces that are still going to be. What about the cultivators? What about the other areas? How does this affect the city?
Well, it really begins and ends with zoning. That's what local communities are tasked with, really, is to decide what to do with their own zoning with regard to these facilities. The state bill did expressly permit cities, townships, and villages to allow or ban as they saw fit. So there's no vested right to bring a facility into a particular community. Okay, by a company. You're not depriving them of any right or privilege. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
By disallowing it. And when we first looked at it, that's kind of where we were going in Forest Park.
Because there were a lot of communities that gave a moratorium, that they did not about it.
And we did as well.
Correct.
The state bill passed over a year ago, it became law over a year ago. And various communities did anywhere from 6 months to a year's worth of moratorium. Ours lasted about 9 months. And it allowed us to study the issue and make sure that no one went in ahead of what we wanted to do, nor did we act too quickly on not enough information. Because how this works is really still, the final rules have been released, but it's still kind of a work in progress. The state is still posting questions and answers on their website, for example.
So as you said that it starts and ends with zoning, how did you approach this, and what will we be seeing as a city?
We don't know yet.
Okay.
Number one, those first three that I mentioned, pretty non-controversial. I doubt that if you went by a facility and it had a certain name, Jason's Manufacturing, that you would know one way or the other that's what the product was.
Sure.
Okay. Not open to the public. There tend to be pretty good paying jobs, what we heard from other states. And so we looked at our areas and thought that it could be in the right building and site appropriate for our manufacturing or industrial park districts. And so we added that as a special exception for those first three.
Gotcha. Okay.
That means it goes to our planning commission for approval on the site and the building, how they're going to use the building, if they're going to make any changes to the building or the site.
That makes
Okay, or
sense.
they're going to build something new. And then you have the dispensaries, which again are more of a retail use.
Right.
Really, I mean, these are going to be the Walgreens of medical marijuana.
That's
think
fair
about
to
it
say.
that way.
Okay.
Or your local pharmacy. And the question came to me a couple of times of why not just have them at the pharmacy? Well, number one, I mean, the state is not allowing that, but it really goes back to the FDA.
Good
Federal
point.
government still bans these products, and pharmacies are licensed, and pharmacists are licensed by the
Right.
FDA. They're just not permitted to dispense these products. So this is kind of aside from the federal drug regulatory framework. But under zoning, to get back to that,
Yes.
so we're looking at dispensaries as essentially a retail use. And again, our initial thought was that well, number one, we looked at the areas of the city where you are more than 500 feet from some facilities that the state decided you couldn't be any closer to.
And
So-
those would probably be schools, churches?
Schools, libraries, churches, childcare centers, and parks.
Okay.
So,
Now, did that not pose a little bit of a problem when it came to our, maybe not a problem, but more of a challenge for you because of the way our city is designed?
not necessarily. What it did was it showed that whether we wanted to put something on Northland Boulevard or not, for example,
Right,
and where the
which is
shopping
one of the
centers
things,
are,
yes.
those areas are close to libraries and schools, and
And
they,
churches.
and churches,
Yeah.
and just would not be eligible. So,
So in other words, a lot of our area was prohibited
Right.
for that
Yeah.
use
Right.
without us doing anything.
Anything at all.
and you'd see that in a developed suburban area, typically.
Sure.
So, and depending on the arrangement of development. That left us with, there was an area near I-275 that really had none of these facilities within 500 feet.
Okay.
And in looking at it, the area north of I-275 had an additional advantage that we thought, at least if we're going to open the door to this, that it would be the area where if there were any negative impacts or things that we had to deal with that were unknowns, that they would be least likely to affect any nearby residents.
Okay.
Because there really are no nearby residents in that area. The closest ones are it's in an inaccessible distance because of a big ravine. Everything else is commercial around there, and in addition, we've already gone on this road with our liquor licenses. Where
Okay.
any new liquor or any new bar or lounge could only go into that area north of I-275. It's, it's a little bit separated from the rest of the city and probably a good area for something that is a little speculative as far as how it's actually going to operate. Okay? So, again, we took the same approach. We went even a little further on this time. And I credit our planning commission for this. They spent a lot of time discussing the issue and bringing their own ideas to the table. But if you wanted to go in and if you wanted to make an application to the state and use a location in Forest Park, you'd need to be north of I-275. You would need to be in a freestanding building on your own lot
Okay.
and in a single-use building, meaning you're not in a multi-tenant building. And the reason for that is to minimize any conflicts with neighboring businesses or neighboring businesses.
Sure.
The question that's come to us since then is like, this might require that we have to build a new building. And we said, we looked at that with the planning commission and we said, no, that would be good. We'd like
Okay.
to see,
Because if you look at that area, you're right. I mean, you're north of 275, so of course, obviously, that includes like the mall property,
Yes.
and then of course the Home Depot, the Omniplex area as well.
Those two areas.
There's obviously nothing really there now that's vacant other than the Kmart property
Right.
that would allow for that. But that's a really large building for a.
That's probably most certainly more space than is needed. Plus, there is a new business that will be going into that building.
That's right.
That being said, there is land that could be developed. When I said the new construction would be a good thing, it's that anytime you retrofit a building, you have challenges. And in particular, there are going to be some security measures that the state is going to require for safe storage and handling,
That's fair.
delivery, and security. That really, if you're going to do it the best, it would be with new construction, so.
I can see that those are very viable
So
points.
those rules don't absolutely require it, because someone could purchase the Kmart building and decide they're going to use that, this amount of square footage for the dispensary and let the rest sit idle.
Sit
I
idle.
think that would be a bad idea, but it could be done. Or they could purchase tire discounters and ask them to move. I don't think that's likely either. Conversely, too, the mall could decide to take part of their parking lot and divide some property and sell it. That would be okay.
Similar to what we've seen at the front of the property.
Right. So we would see that as, that would be new construction.
Right.
And really, the reason behind this, Jason, is that we, I think, really looked at this as, there are people that are suffering that don't need to be. And the state, I think, really did act in largely out of compassion in putting this law into place. It's a very restricted medical marijuana law. I mean, there are other states where you can get a prescription that's renewable forever, that can be for conditions such as anxiety or, oh gosh, I'm worried today. You're essentially on the legal side of the fence, and that's all on you. You decided that you all you had to do was go for the formality of going to a physician.
Right.
Where this is very, very specific to the medical conditions, and I think the state's going to keep a pretty close eye on it. The other thing too, though, that most people I don't think know, is that the number of these facilities has already been restricted by region.
Okay.
Hamilton County, there can only be 3 locations.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So,
Because I'm sure most people thought once this passed, there's going to be a shop at every corner. There's going
That's
to be
what I heard, yeah.
Sure, and I think that's what everybody. I don't want to say was worried about, but there was a concern raised.
I think that's the first thing that came to people's mind. Yeah.
Sure.
Now, that being said, 3 for Hamilton County, I mean, who knows if that's enough or not. That's one of those things they decided not to leave to the market.
Sure.
My own preference would be to maybe move it a little bit more to a market force, just because you can't really know ahead of time.
How many people are going to go out for
You might
this?
have,
And again,
over here, you might have some that are overwhelmed, and over there, you might have some that go out of business.
that's fair.
But the point of this, though, saying only 3 in Hamilton County, is we may not get one at all.
Well, and that's where I was going to follow up. What is the probability of Forest Park being one of the 3?
I will say that we've had a lot of calls
Okay.
by people that are looking at making applications to the state, which are due next month, and they have to have their location set
By the end of next month, complete. By the end of November.
by the middle of November.
By the middle of November. Okay.
Yeah, November 15th, I think.
Oh wow. Okay.
They have to have that. They have to have that location set. They can't change the location, so they really have to get that in place. And so my office, I have been fielding a lot of calls on that. So the interest is definitely there. The knowledge of the location and the zoning is out there, but we've yet to see someone hand us the form and say, "Will you sign this?"
Okay. It's really more talk than it is any action at this point.
Right. And It's an interesting topic. I mean, a lot of people have asked questions about it. Really and truly, I feel like a lot of people have been supportive of our approach.
And then that's where the next question I was going to go. How have the residents of the city responded in regards to this? I mean, I'm usually there at the council meetings. I don't see people out there with picket signs or anything like that. But I'm sure, Ray, that you've gotten a few calls maybe here or there, either for or against.
A few calls for the significance of the use. We haven't received a lot of calls, and the calls and the conversations I've had have just generally been more of a question.
Okay.
What are we doing and why? And that's one of the reasons we wanted Chris here today to explain what we're doing, why. It hasn't necessarily been a protest against, as an example, but just a curiosity of, okay, why are we doing this when maybe it's been in the paper that another community just said flat out, no, have no interest, we won't allow it. So why did we undertake to allow it? And I think Chris has very eloquently explained that we did a lot of research on this. Yes, we started with a moratorium that said you can't do anything till we look at it in detail. And Chris did the research, and we are very aware of what it means for Forest Park. And again, Chris hit on the point that it may mean something very significant in this area, but it will be highly regulated. On the other hand, it may not mean anything. But we got a handle on it. We know what it could mean for Forest Park, and the way we have it structured, it would be good for Forest Park.
And Chris, that's what I was going to ask. You've done your homework. You've done all the research. You've taken care of it. If Forest Park were to be chosen for one of these places, do you feel that it's going to be a very big benefit to the city in many regards? Be it employment, be it some place that is, I don't want to say, that it spot to go to, but at least people know Forest Park, and then people can come and do other things other than getting their prescription filled.
You have to be realistic in your expectations. So I don't expect it to be any kind of transformative development. It's not big enough to do that. Redeveloping the mall is a transformative development.
Yes.
But you can expect, number one, that it would bring people into Forest Park that may not otherwise come here, which is by and large a good thing. And there will be employees, and there will be taxes paid to us, the school district, the other levies, and all of those are benefits.
And one of the things you want to reflect back on is what we sort of opened up this conversation with, and that's with the understanding that it's really not going to change the legal or illegal activity in smoking marijuana. This is not even part of the picture. This is really a medical side of issues, and to that extent, I say you're not going to see much of a change. It's not going to. You're not going to find people necessarily here representing a law enforcement issue or anything like that. It's the same thing that if you needed prescription medicine, where would you go to? And that's what we have addressed.
You think of it in terms of like a specialized clinic or spa or something like that. Not that you're going to go there and go into a hot tub, but it's one of those things that people would travel to in order to access.
It's a specialty, so to speak. And as we've seen throughout the changes that have been going on with the city, that medical is one of those components that have been a key component here in the city recently.
Although when we were doing the redevelopment plan, we didn't have that in mind.
Well, really, who did at that point? We'll be honest, but I mean...
Yes, certainly. Medical and retail. I mean, you have to be realistic here. I mean,
correct.
It does have a medical aspect, but it is also a retail function.
Right. So there are some changes that could happen with this, and that, the city, at least as we know, is ready and in good hands with what is possible that could happen.
All right.
Right. And I do want to thank Chris for all his time and research on this, because
Absolutely.
we could have just as easily have adopted the approach that a few communities adopt, and that is, let's just say no and see what happens from there. But we were prepared to say no. The research and the facts just led us to what I believe is a much better, more logical and practical decision that fits a community like Forest Park. Will not hurt us, will not place a burden on us. If anything, it could become an asset for Forest Park.
Agreed. And Chris, thank you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you're welcome. In my opinion on this is we might be talking about this 5 years from now, and we all wonder what the big deal was back then.
You're right. And as you said, with only 3 in the area, we may not be discussing this, not in the area of Forest Park, but 3 in Hamilton County.
Right.
It may not be an issue at all.
No, I mean, right. Those 3 could go to other locations.
But at least we know we are prepared, we are ready, and we have all the right information
That's right.
to make the positive decision. Well, Chris, I want to thank you for joining us. And Ray, of course, as always, thank you for joining us as well. For those who have not been taking the hint that Wright has been leaving, this is Ray's last performance, like he's been acting on this the whole time. Ray's last shot here on Talking with Forest Park as our city manager. The new seat will be taken by Ty Smith, whom you have brought to the ranks for next time. So January, you'll be seeing a new face sitting here. Ray, I want to personally thank you for taking the time on cold, wintry days and hot, blistering summers and wonderful times to come and sit and talk with us every other month on your show.
Well, I want to thank you. I think we've done well together. We've had some great guests along the way. I think we've had an opportunity to provide some very valuable information for the residents, and it's been a very enjoyable run. So I think we're getting close to the finish line, a few more steps to go, but it's all been good.
And again, for me to be able to say thank you, I appreciate it. And that doesn't mean Talking with Forest Park will go away. Like I said, Ty Smith will be joining us in January with a brand new edition. But Ray, thank you as always. Again, thank you both for joining us. I want to thank Wright Gwyn as well for joining us, and I want to thank you as well. This has been Talking with Forest Park, your key to the city. I'm Jason Grzegorek, Waycross Community Media's Government Access Coordinator, allowing you this opportunity to sit with those in the know and talk with Forest Park. Have a great evening. We'll see you next time.